If you like audiobooks or audio shows, check out a free trial of Audible. Just click the link in the description.
Welcome to MINDSHOCK True Crime. This is your host, Bruce McGuire, and you are listening to the Idaho students' murders. This is episode 9, Brent Kopacka. And many believe this guy supposedly gunned down by SWAT at nearby Washington State University area. Within the area of Washington State University where students live, this guy gunned down by SWAT allegedly, which is curious in and of itself. I mean, right around the time after the murders, this guy's gunned down, this guy who supposedly works in the IT department at the University of Idaho, who supposedly had their security system down the night of the Idaho homicides. All coincidental, probably. I mean, the coincidence theorists are having a field day with this case. There's obviously way more coincidences that you could shake a stick at. There's so many student deaths that are just filed away as not suspicious. I mean, it's just this whole area is really bizarre. And regarding Brent Kopacka, many believe he has some kind of a link to Kohberger. He has cryptic social media posts as well, which we'll be going over, as well as coincidentally, supposedly, the guy also had a white Elantra. I mean, this is really weird. This is really weird. I mean, and this is all just the tip of the iceberg. We'll be going over all of this in typical MINDSHOCK fashion, with logic and reason at the forefront. If you enjoy the podcast, find it interesting and informative, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Help support the logical examination of true crime cases to ensure that victims get true justice instead of all of these cheerleaders to the idiot box. Whenever somebody's arrested, they're magically guilty. Somehow all these goofs know that magically nobody else was involved, nobody else should even be pursued, and let's just lock the case down. It's always a single guy acting alone. For some reason, criminals can never act in conjunction with other criminals or have accomplices or any of this stuff, despite the fact that they're convicted in court every single day of this. Some people are. So the gullible goofs, for whatever reason, they're just so triggered at any notion of not a single guy being involved in any kind of high-profile case for whatever reason. Here on MINDSHOCK, we don't fall for these silly logical fallacies. We actually expose them. So, yeah, you can also support the podcast by becoming a YouTube member right here on YouTube, access to exclusive streams and chats. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. If you're still not getting them, just make sure you like and comment on more videos. That seems to be the way the YouTube algorithm works. Like and share, Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Patreon. Patrons do get priority for case topic, logical analysis, co-podcast, or requests. You could also be a guest in the podcast depending on your tier. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind, leave them in the comment section. All right. So let's start off here with a huge problem in the case. I mean, one of many. Let's go to dailymail.co.uk. This has been reported in a few other outlets for those that have a problem with the Daily Mail and engage in genetic logical fallacies, but I think this is a pretty good write-up by Andrea Cavalier. Posted March 29th, 2023, is Brian Kohberger's trial in jeopardy. Police officer is implicated in internal affairs probe that could threaten the Idaho murder case. Brian Kohberger, 28, is accused of killing 4 University of Idaho students. Prosecutors have provided potential Brady Giglio material to the defense related to an officer involved with Kohberger's case. Kohberger is due in court June 26th and is being held without bail until then. Prosecutors have disclosed that a police officer involved in the Kohberger's case is the subject of an internal affairs probe that could threaten the Idaho murder trial. On Monday, a notice of potential Brady Giglio material was submitted to the Latah County District Attorney's Office about the separate confidential investigation. Brady material is information that could be potentially exculpatory for the defense. Giglio material is information that could impeach the credibility of a witness, which in this case would be an officer who worked on Kohberger's case. At the request of the prosecution, a protective order was granted by Latah County Magistrate Judge Megan Marshall to keep the material, which contains personnel records, from being publicly disclosed. It comes as 28-year-old Kopacka prepares to stand trial for the November 13th murders of University of Idaho students Kaylee Gonzalez, Madison Mogen, Ethan Chapin, and Zaina Kernodle. A preliminary hearing will be held June 26th. Prosecutors have yet to reveal if they intend to seek the death penalty for Kohberger, but some legal experts say that to avoid any issues on appeal, it's better for the prosecution to lay everything out. Prosecutors are disclosing the material under the obligation of 2 Supreme Court cases, Brady v. Maryland and Giglio v. United States. The state has become aware of potential Brady-Giglio material related to one of the officers involved in the above-referenced case, the state wrote in the motion. The state intends to disclose the info to the defendant's counsel, prosecutors said, while adding that information is confidential and exempt from public disclosure. Brady material is any evidence that could prove the defendant is not guilty, Fox News reported. Giglio material refers to any evidence past or present that could impeach the credibility of a witness, the outlet reported. DailyMail.com has reached out to Kohberger's defense team for comment on the development. Nama Ramani, a former federal prosecutor, speculated to Fox News that the relevant material could be related to Kohberger's case or information about an officer's past that impeaches their credibility as a witness at Kohberger's trial. It could be anything. Ramani told Fox News Digital it could be beating his wife. That's a weird thing for her to randomly throw out. Wow. It could be driving fast and he's pulled over, pulling out his badge when he shouldn't. It could be smoking weed. Did she just kind of list the most common offenses police officers are investigated by Internal Affairs for? The material will not be made public because the judge approved the protective order after the motion was filed on Monday. Ramani also suggested that the prosecutors laid it all out in an effort to avoid any issues on appeal should they seek the death penalty. In the prosecution's case, you're thinking ahead, okay, I got a case wrong. You know what? I'm just going to disclose everything because I don't want an appellate issue down the road, Ramani said. Prosecutors have yet to reveal if they intend to see the death penalty for Kohberger, who was charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder and burglary in the deaths of Kaylee Gonzalez, Madison Mogen, both 21, and the couple Zaina Kernodle and Ethan Chapin, both 20, at their off-campus apartment. The slayings shocked the rural Idaho community in neighboring Pullman, Washington, where Kohberger was a graduate student studying criminology at Washington State University. Earlier this week, it was revealed that Kohberger's sisters were both let go from their jobs, and his family has been struggling financially since his arrest in December. It was also reported that the family has not visited Kohberger in jail, but have spoken with him on the phone. It would be curious what those phone conversations are like. Is Kohberger insisting on his innocence? Is he avoiding talking about innocence or guilt completely? Or is there something else going on? And how much does Kohberger know? So if he's guilty with an accomplice, or he was kind of used as a patsy for something he didn't know was going to be murder. Because I've gone over this in the previous episodes. Make sure you check those out for all the different theories. But that was one of the McGuire theories where if Kohberger, apparently he's hanging out at the University of Idaho as well. He's hanging out in the cafeteria, staring at people or whatever from all of these accounts. But either way, he's hanging out in the area. Is he involved in the drug scene? If so, as either seller or buyer, was there something going on at the house, which is a party house? Many allege that it's a house known where you can score drugs or whatever from whatever parties, not necessarily the victims, obviously, but from other people in the home, either the roommates or other individuals. Since it's such a party house, wouldn't it be safer for people who don't live there to do their business there, because then it's safer for them? So is it more likely that someone who doesn't live there simply hangs out there at parties and otherwise and sells drugs from there, but doesn't actually live there? Either way, if there's some kind of crossover with Kohberger and maybe Brent Kopacka or any of these other guys that might be connected, did they kind of set him up as saying, okay, we're just going to go score or sell, and then they knew that it was going to turn into, maybe they didn't even intend to murder anybody. Maybe they just wanted to rough up some people and scare them. Maybe they even got the wrong people. Who knows? And then it all spiraled out of control, and that's why Kohberger, if he was even there, is like walking up to the door, what's going on, and then leaving, even if he himself didn't do anything. If he's being set up as a patsy by either Kopacka or somebody else, some of these, maybe these frat guys or whatever, connections to the sororities, coincidentally, the victims formerly belonging to the only two sororities that were on probation. None of the other ones were, so whatever. Anyway, who knows what else is going on with the fraternities as well? All of these so-called suspicious deaths, are they related to hazing? Are they related to something else, the drug scene, whatever? And Kohberger, maybe he really was there, but would he really leave his knife sheath there? Or if somebody's making it look like he did it, especially if he really was there, would they leave the sheath and then say, oh, look, that clearly points to him? I mean, this is just bonkers. The level of insanity where supposedly this PhD student is going to be this dumb. Now, if he's completely insane, then maybe. But if he has any modicum of intelligence, you would think this is not the way he would carry this out. However, if he was either tricked into being there, or maybe he wasn't even there, but if he was tricked into being there at some point during the night, regardless of whether he was there at the exact time the murders were taking place, somebody else could implicate him more easier in that situation. So again, if you haven't checked out the previous episodes, make sure you check them out. The family made one public statement in the wake of the killings. Quote, we will continue to let the legal process unfold. As a family, we love and support our son and brother, end quote, they said in January after his arrest. We have fully cooperated with law enforcement agencies in an attempt to seek the truth and promote his presumption of innocence rather than judge unknown facts and make erroneous assumptions, end quote. I mean, that's a pretty solid statement there. They're not saying he's innocent. They're saying he deserves his presumption of innocence as any citizen. So that is curious. That's curious. So what do they know, and how much has Kohberger said? And would they say something like that if they knew Kohberger was present and being used as a patsy and tricked and possibly involved in something illegal, like some kind of drug activity, but not murder? And if that is the case, how much has Kohberger told them? Kohberger, who was pursuing his PhD at nearby Washington State University before his arrest in January, is now back in Idaho, where he's being kept in isolation far from other inmates, given the depravity of his alleged crimes. Kohberger could face execution if convicted of one of any of the murder charges. All right. So, yeah. Now, who is this officer? Some allege this is the very officer who is in charge of the case. And this is Brett Payne. And apparently some allege that he actually served in the military in the same platoon with Brent Kopacka and was actually present during this SWAT shootout. Others believe that it's more connected with the police chief, but either way, I have no idea. Obviously, this is MINDSHOCK, where the only thing we know for sure is that we don't know anything for sure. I am not claiming anything is true or untrue. There's a lot of Dunning-Kruger goofs leaving comments, of course, that can't understand basic first-grade English. I will say it again. I am not claiming anything is true or untrue. It's very simple. No need for these goofs to get triggered. I'm going over an assortment of information and theories, many of which are mutually exclusive. This is the MINDSHOCK podcast, where we approach everything with logic and reason, not presuppositions and hallucinations to already know what is or isn't related, what is or isn't true, like most of the media. So here is an article here. Revealed lead investigator in Idaho murders is a U.S. Army vet with just 2 years of police experience, as desperate FBI adds agents and families grow even more impatient. This was posted all the way back December 20th, 2022 by Jennifer Smith, dailymail.com. Officer Brett Payne joined the Moscow Police Department from the Army in 2020. Payne, 32, is now the lead investigator on the unsolved quadruple murder case. Kayla Gonzalez, Madison Mogen, Xana Coronado, and Ethan Chapin died November 13th. They were all stabbed viciously while they slept in their beds. Allegedly, supposedly that is not true. No one has been arrested, and police still don't have any leads in the case. So this is as of December 20th, 2022. So this is before Kohberger's arrest. The lead investigator in the excruciatingly slow probe of 4 murdered Idaho students is a 32-year-old U.S. Army vet who only joined law enforcement 2 years ago. It has been over 5 weeks since the murders in the house. The killer remains on the loose, and the floundering Moscow Police Department is yet to name any suspects, let alone make any arrests. The FBI added 30 extra agents. Now, the lawyer for Kaylee's family has told her parents were told yesterday that the man in charge of the probe, Brett Payne, has been on the force for just 2 years. So he was hired in 2020 as a rookie. He has a total of 2 years experience. All right, kind of weird. So he was served in the 82nd Airborne Division in Afghanistan. And this is his first policing job. So the 82nd Airborne is supposedly an elite infantry division. Now that's curious. That's curious. Not to get into super, super deep conspiracy land, but would someone like Kopacka or even Officer Payne here more likely to execute this siege on a house, killing 4 people in the middle of the night? Is an elite military-trained individual more likely to do this than somebody like Kohberger? I don't know. I'm just asking questions here. And is it possible that Payne and Kopacka actually knew each other? Were they both involved? Who knows what's going on here? I mean, this case is just really, really bizarre. That's pretty much the only thing that can be deduced conclusively at this point. Other people allege that if Kohberger and Kopacka acted together, and Kohberger really is smart, did he perhaps know that the cops were closing in and he set up Kopacka to be killed by SWAT, feeding them whatever information? Again, this is just what people are discussing. I'm not claiming that is true or untrue. Come With Me Crime posted this on the MINDSHOCK podcast regarding the Moscow Murders cover-up podcast. RVing Keep It Rolling posted this. Wow, I didn't know about the LinkedIn account. This is regarding Kaylee Gonzalez's LinkedIn account, which somehow disappeared. I think Brian being set up, and I think DM is involved. I think Kaylee and Maddie had information and was talking about it. Could have been drugs or about the sorority. Cops, but they had some kind of information that got them killed. And Dylan may be Bethany involved. Strange how DM called sorority friends first. And didn't Kaylee and Maddie belong to the same one, but either left or was kicked out? Yeah, a lot of unanswered questions in that direction as well. Here's another post from Come With Me Crime. I just keep saying normal people with only high school diplomas wouldn't even make this many mistakes. Brian seems to have made them start to finish and even left a trail. Would he really leave so much evidence in his path? Police caught him with gloves on, etc. So would he be that stupid to touch the knife case even once without gloves? I don't know. The knife case was spotless for dirt, even blood, but a tiny bit of DNA was on it. This is almost like the Stephen Avery case, where, wow. And it was found just under a body. For me, where that knife case was found, it was placed deliberately. I'm not saying he's not done this crime, but I honestly feel there is more to it. Good comment from Come With Me Crime. Very objective, logical, and neutral. That is a problem. Again, unless he's completely insane, but even then, I mean, wouldn't he leave even more evidence then? I mean, I don't know. It's really weird. Let's look at another article here. Idaho murder suspect Brian Kohberger kept ID tied to the killings. Or again, is that another planted piece? Who knows? This is an article in New York Post. Olivia Land, April 7th, 2023. University of Idaho murder suspect Brian Kohberger may have held onto an ID belonging to one of the 4 killed in the shocking November stabbings, sources claimed this week. Kohberger, 28, was arrested in Pennsylvania December 30th, 6 weeks after Gonzalez, Mojin, Kernodle, and Chapin were murdered in their off-campus home in Moscow. In addition to DNA evidence tying Kohberger to the grisly scene, an unsealed search warrant suggested police found unspecified IDs in the glove box of the doctoral student's car, News Nation's reported. Okay. Would he really be that dumb to leave an ID in his own glove? I mean, again, we're going back to does this look like a frame up, or does it really look like this PhD criminology student would make every mistake in the book that even, really dumb people wouldn't make? I mean, this is really, really weird. And is it possible that one of these police officers is actually planting this evidence? And does the IA probe refer to some kind of planting in other cases? Where obviously that would shed some doubt on this case as well. And here's the thing. When cops frame people, I mean, what kind of person would they look to frame? Would they look to frame a weird, psychotic-looking guy like Brian Kohberger? Because the masses would easily believe that he could be capable of something like this. And maybe he is capable, maybe he didn't do it. Maybe he killed other people, but he's not guilty for this particular crime. But again, police want to solve cases, they want to be heroes, etc. Certain ones are willing to bend the law, obviously. There's no shortage of this. I do have the Stephen Avery podcast episode on crime lab corruption coming up, where there's literally dozens and dozens of cases where officers were involved in switching labels at labs and etc. And these are only the ones that are found out about, and there's so many of them. It's going to be a very long episode, obviously, going over all the ones that, and these are just the ones that they found out about. I can only imagine how many other ones there are. But if that's the case here, what is going on? Obviously, coincidence theorists will hallucinate that there's absolutely no chance any of this could happen in this particular case, regardless of how many other cases it happens in. I mean, these are silly goofs, but that's why the MINDSHOCK podcast exists, so we can examine this logically and objectively. It's a big deal. This is a smoking license. Retired FBI agent Jennifer Coffindaffer. What a name. Coffindaffer? Told the network's Chris Cuomo of possible discovery, which cannot be confirmed due to a gag order on the case. Wait, so there's a gag order? Oh, she's a retired FBI agent, so she got some kind of inside source? Just like the knife sheath with a smoking sheath found next to Mojin's body with his DNA on that clasp, how convenient. Is this the same thing in this situation? Why would he have an ID related to one of those people from that house? That's a good question, because even if he's guilty, why would he have that ID? Coffindaffer appeared on the network alongside trial attorney Mark Garagos, who surmised that the ID find, if true, would be bad for Kohberger. I mean, this is a real meeting of the minds here. It would be bad if you have an ID in your car belonging to a murdered person. Wow. Okay. The rumor that Kohberger may have kept ID of someone from the Moscow house emerged shortly after the news broke that police were investigating whether the Pennsylvania native had contacted one of the victims prior to the murders. If that's true, why do people stalk? They stalk because they're feeling persecuted, and this is a way they can exact their revenge, Coffindaffer told Cuomo. Coffindaffer's remarks echoed those of former FBI investigator Pete Yachmetz, who told the Post earlier this year that Kohberger may have struggled with an incel complex. I believe a continued stabbing of a victim indicates an uncontrolled rage and extreme anger, Yachmetz said, referring to the accused killer's long history of interpersonal problems. At the time of the killings, Kohberger was a doctoral student in criminal justice at Washington State University in Pullman, just 15 miles from Moscow. Search warrants unsealed last month also revealed a trove of disturbing items, including a gun, several knives, and a black face mask that investigators took from Kohberger's parents' home following his dramatic arrest. Kohberger, who has not yet entered a plea to 4 counts of murder and 1 count of felony burglary, is in custody in Latah County, Idaho. He's due back in court June 26th. And again, let's not forget the hit and run that happened right outside Kohberger's apartment that night. Yet another coincidence. I mean, how often does an accused murderer, innocent or guilty, have a hit and run occurring in front of their apartment on the night of a murder? I mean, what is going on in this case? This is just the most bizarre case ever. I went over that in the previous episodes. If you haven't checked those out, make sure you check them out. Okay. So, on the Idaho murders documentary on the ID network, it is mentioned that the white Hyundai Elantra circled the block 3 times in the doorbell camera footage. So 3:29 a.m., then another 2 times, then came back in the neighborhood a 4th time at 4:04 a.m., then left at a high rate of speed at 4:20 a.m. Okay, what does this all mean? Because are people trying to be inconspicuous? Would they do that? I mean, this is insane, especially knowing people have door cam footage. Or did they just randomly assume, if it's somebody that's been in the neighborhood multiple times, I mean, wouldn't you assume that at least someone somewhere has some kind of doorbell or security camera? Now, obviously not everywhere, but somewhere. I mean, it's just kind of weird. It's kind of weird. Now, supposedly, Kopacka might have had a white or silver or Elantra as well, and maybe it was visible in the police body cam footage that night, who just so happened to be nearby the house. Students running by, cars all around. So there's a lot of weirdness in this case, obviously. I mean, there's just so much here. None of it really makes any sense. To hallucinate, none of it is connected to anything. I mean, that's a weird thing, but you know, that's what coincidence theories do. All right, so let's look at more info on Kopacka here. So Veterans Day is November 11th. Supposedly, Kopacka's best friend's birthday is November 13th. The date of the killings. Is that all coincidental? So Kopacka has posted a lot of cryptic posts here. He has a photo of his own eye, supposedly. In his own eye, there's a lot of people thinking that it actually shows the murder house, but it's kind of hard to tell. The We the People Twitter account posted a lot of interesting information on Kopacka here. He's also got some coordinates posted in California. I don't know if people are insinuating there's bodies buried there or whatever. So these are posts from March 8th, 2023. What was hidden in the map you posted 3 to 4 days before SWAT? I pick ? Hope was your girl, but you felt hopeless. Why? What were you trying to tell us, Brent? I don't understand why they didn't use gas and flashbangs like they did for a similar incident nearby to take him alive. Chief Fry was there. His voice can be heard on the scanner talk that night. Roommates walked outside. No 911 call release. He had family in Lewiston, Idaho. There's an investigation into this matter. Okay, so supposedly they were afraid that he would kill his roommates, but allegedly his roommates were also outside at the time of his death. So during the scanner call, an officer mentions that Brent had thrown things out the window before Brent was killed. Always wondered why the gun with evidence marker was outside when they said he was in his apartment, and there's actually a photograph here. That is a weird curiosity. And also there's a screenshot here of this timeline of the standoff from local news with a lot of people standing outside. Some people are alleging that those are actually, some of them are his roommates that he's might have been threatening. Okay. This is all really weird. So, timeline of the standoff here, 9 p.m. start point, 3 a.m. tweet from Washington State University, 3:47 a.m. fire started, building evacuated, 4:22 a.m. law enforcement shoots suspect. So, is there nobody inside at the time he was shot? So, there is a post here. I'm assuming this is a YouTube screenshot. This lady says Brent lived with 2 female roommates with names similar to 2 of the King Road victims. There is one video on the Wayback Machine website with 2 of the roommates from the Brent Kopacka situation. I seen it a month ago, now I cannot find it. Odd that the 2 roommates' names of Brent Kopacka is Kylie, and the other girl's name sounds like Madison, but not Madison. I'll see if I can find that video. I mean, that would obviously be a coincidence as well. Everything is a coincidence in this case, obviously. There's nothing that can't be a coincidence according to the coincidence theorists. So supposedly this is not Chief Fry's jurisdiction, so people are speculating why... Chief Fry. So this is the police chief of the city of Moscow. So some people are asking why he's dealing with the Kopacka situation. I mean, it's not that far away, but still. I mean, this is all really, really bizarre. We the People also brought up a case, the 5 University of Florida co-eds murders, where 5 students were killed in Florida with a K-bar knife, most of them sleeping. 4 females, 1 male. The first guy arrested was a student, but the killer ended up being somebody else. This was in Gainesville, Florida. We the People also posted this tweet. Anyone think it's weird that there's no pictures or videos of Brian in Pullman or Moscow? Not at a restaurant, school, festival, party, bar, apartment, house, etc. The work ID is the only thing I've seen from there. Dude's a ghost. Room Rental posted this. He had friends and also went to a pool party, plus neighbor dude was inviting him over. If he was such a recluse, that would not happen. Lots of people I know aren't on social media, so they have no pictures floating around. Some go to public events, some don't like having pics taken. Here's the thing though, not necessarily pictures of him posing in the pictures, but in the background, because obviously this is college. Most college students, especially females, are posting, taking countless photos all the time. So he would be in the background somewhere, not to mention security footage of whatever establishments. Yeah, it's pretty weird. So the other thing that people are finding curious is that the vehicle they're looking for is a 2011 to 2013 Elantra. Koberger has a 2015 Elantra. So this is the wrong year. I mean, it's not off by a lot, but is that a different body style? Yes, it is. So the 2015 is the 6th generation Elantra. The 5th generation was 2010 to 2014. So, wow. So that's a completely different body style in the 2015. I mean, not completely different, but different. So you would think that law enforcement were pretty clear with the launcher they were looking for. This does not match. Okay, so they're looking for a 2011 to 2013. So does the 2014 Elantra also have a different body style? And then the 2015 has another different body style. And let's go into the next point here, because just as a quick aside here, let's go to Q13 Fox. Idaho murders, 90 white Elantras were registered to park on campus as cops struggle to find vehicle. So those are only the ones registered to park on campus. Those do not include any white Elantras registered to private citizens in the exact area driving around those neighborhoods. So it's 90 that were registered to park specifically on campus. So that you would think, I mean, there's at least, I don't know, a couple more, if not way more, just simply registered to private citizens in the area who are not parking on campus. So this is crazy. The University of Idaho has 90 white Elantras registered to park at the school. Vehicles similar to one police are seeking in connection with the quadruple homicide just steps off campus, records show. So this article is December 28th, 2022, before the arrest, by Michael Ruiz. Wednesday marked 45 days since the slayings, and police are still seeking the car they say was spotted near the scene of the crime on Kings Road early hours of November 13th, 2022. On December 7th, police announced they were looking for a white Hyundai Elantra from between 2011 and 2013 in connection with this case, and as of their most recent public remarks, they still have not found it. Progress continues to locate the white 2011 to 2013 Hyundai Elantra, believed to be in the immediate area of the King Road residence during the early morning hours of November 13th. Authorities repeated on Tuesday. Investigators believe the occupant or occupants may have critical information to share regarding this case. The statement did not describe the progress. Police have said the detectives have been working their way through a list of more than 22,000 similar Elantras and have been asking the public to come forward with info. Okay, so that's curious. So So there's of course the footage from the clerk showing a white car, but there's also since then information has been released regarding the white Elantra that was circling the block or circling the neighborhood several times. And it seems like from the ring footage, they were able to deduce that it is the exact body style of 2011 to 2013. Otherwise, they would have said 2011 to 2015, right? Because if 2014s and 2015s have other distinct body styles, I mean, of course, slight differences. It's not a completely different car, but apparently the details were good enough for them to specifically state it was a 2011 to 2013 body style Hyundai Elantra. Not a 2014 or 2015. They ruled otherwise they would have included them in the ones they were looking for. And so that's kind of weird. So Kohberger has a 2015 Elantra. That's weird. That's pretty weird. What does everybody think of that? And what vehicle does Kopacka have? Here's an interesting post on Reddit from Pork and Cheese Blonde. I was reading the comments of a YouTube video on this guy, and someone in there claimed to be a neighbor and said he was holding his roommates hostage because they were accusing him of committing the 4 murders. Couldn't find out if that was true or not, but the guy having combat experience, it would make more sense how he took on 4 people that night. See, that's weird. But why would the roommates randomly, if they really believe he's a murderer, why would they randomly accuse this guy, supposedly who has a lot of guns, this military guy, right in his face? I mean, I don't know. That seems kind of weird. Wouldn't they go to the police with a tip? Or were they just seeking more info and he snapped and they really did ask some kind of innocent question that maybe even, I don't know. I don't know how obvious they were fishing, but who knows? I mean, this is really weird. Another post, there has been nothing said about why he held them hostage and they disappeared. None gave interviews. That's curious as well, because what the hell is going on with these SWAT standoffs? In all these other cases, you have the people, at least some people on the news immediately. I mean, what is going on here? This is all very curious. So here's an outline here. This was made supposedly by John Wayne with 3 S's. On exactly where this supposed Elantra was traveling. So is it possible there was more than white Elantra? Because if there's thousands of them in the general area, 90 specifically registered to park, but there are hundreds or thousands more. I mean, if the plate is clearly visible, then obviously they would know it's the same one. But it's unknown if the plate, supposedly the plate could not be visible because then they would have tracked it down. So if they can only make out the body style, is it possible there's more than white Elantra? I mean, this isn't exactly a rare vehicle. Elantras are very popular vehicles. White is also one of the most popular colors of the Elantra. So it's kind of weird. I mean, it's definitely kind of weird. Here's a post by I Was a Teen Guitarist. This guy, regarding Kopacka. Oh, and this guy lived on campus at WSU but worked at the University of Idaho. After dying in a dramatic SWAT event, even just a little more than a month after this mass murder involving 4 University of Idaho students, which occurred within walking distance where Kopacka worked, why is it so hard to find out anything about him online? About all that can be found are news reports of what happened regarding his threatening his roommates with a firearm and that SWAT shot him dead. His name, his age, and that he's a military vet who served active duty in Afghanistan and has PTSD, and there's been whispers he drives a white Elantra. Plus, his apartment is within walking distance of Kohberger. And the hostage situation began roughly at the time Kohberger takes off with his father for Pennsylvania. Chief Fry stated December 8th, 2022, we're looking for the occupants of a white Elantra. 1 week later, Kopacka apparently loses it, threatens his roommates with a gun, gets into a hostage situation, and is shot dead by SWAT. Another poster said that they changed their statement to a single person in a white Elantra. I Was a Teen Guitarist responded, this is my theory. It is not intended to accuse anyone of anything. But let's face it, Kohberger was an easy target if the statements about him being socially awkward, possibly autistic, is true. He's an out-of-towner. Unlike nearly everyone else called possible suspects by podcasters, online sleuths, and even hinted at by family members, one family member suggested some of the early people cleared were cleared too soon. Kohberger is the only one without family in the Washington, Idaho area. If and only if Kopacka had anything to do with this, he chose an interesting time to decide to pull out a gun and hold his roommates hostage. I'm not saying he had anything to do with November 13th. I'm completely speculating, but it's an opinion not stated as a fact. Then this coincided exactly when Kohberger's father shows up in Pullman for the trip across the country. We have evidence this trip was not spur of the moment, but was planned due to Kohberger's mother's Reddit posts from the summer of 2022. Now, suddenly, Kohberger's not alone. He has a parent around him, and he's about to be around other close family members when he reaches Pennsylvania. Was there a concern now that Kohberger was face-to-face with both parents he might talk about Kopacka? Another poster, it's a very interesting time to lose complete control and exchange gunfire with SWAT, right? His obituary said he struggled with PTSD for 16 years, but reaches a boiling point at that particular time. It's thin, right? I Was a Teen Guitarist responded, was Kopacka's concern he'd have no further contact with Kohberger for a full month. Meanwhile, for the first time frame, Kohberger would have nothing but family around the trigger, would have family around the trigger that possibly set him off. That makes sense. Kohberger's leaving town and Kopacka's feeling vulnerable, especially as Idaho law enforcement released the bolo for the White Elantra and he loses control. Kohberger gets spooked at the news of the incident unfolding and he bolts out to Pennsylvania out of Pullman. Yeah, that's curious, because if they do know each other and are somehow connected to the crime in some way, the timing actually does make sense there. Because it's not just about the murders, it's about Kohberger leaving town for whatever period of time, possibly never to return, who knows. But yeah. What does everybody think about that? That's curious timing, to say the least. So they both have White Elantras? Is that kind of weird? What was the year, if Kopacka really does have an Elantra, is his Elantra a 2011 to 2013 and Kohberger's was a 2015? Also, when Kohberger and his dad were pulled over, they specifically mentioned the SWAT shooting incident. That's curious. I mean, let's say Kohberger is guilty or complicit in some capacity. You have another SWAT shooting death within weeks of the quadruple homicide within a mile of Kohberger's home. That's all coincidental. So supposedly, these cell phone pings of Kohberger actually, when he's back in Pullman, supposedly it lines up with Kopacka's residence. Some people are obviously speculating why he would take the path he took. It's pretty weird. Ew, Cheyenne Liz posted this. So if I'm understanding correctly, Kopacka went to the same school as the victims. Kopacka and Kohberger more than likely knew each other, and with both of them having mental health issues, may have ended up bonding and becoming friends. Maybe they both purchased and used drugs together in that area, so pings around the house prior to the murder. I would love to see if they pull Kopacka's phone records and see if the pings would match up to Kohberger's. That's a good question. Maybe they were just high talking about these hot girls that Kopacka knew and got mad when they weren't able to get anywhere romantically with them, so they put together their criminology knowledge, figured they could get away with it. If Kopacka isn't involved in some way, shape, or form, I'll be very shocked. You know what's weird, though? So what if this is a situation with both of these guys possibly knowing other frat guys or not? What if Kopacka, they always talk about dark stuff like murder, and Kohberger thinks Kopacka's joking. And he asks him how to execute this crime. If there's a falling out or something between the two, would Kopacka frame Kohberger when Kopacka's the guilty party? Or what if Kopacka somehow convinces Kohberger to go into the house and screw around just to scare the girls or the occupants, not actually to attack or assault anybody, just as a drug-induced prank of sorts, and it all goes horribly wrong, and Kohberger actually didn't know any of this was going to happen, or vice versa, who knows? But yeah, it's just, this does open the door. I mean, the level of coincidence here for Kopacka not to be involved is quite high, just given the timing and the fact that everything's been kept so hush-hush. Whoa, somebody, Kiev Supreme, posted a very interesting image here. There is a white Elantra with no front plate right outside Kopacka's residence in a news article with the police tape around it. What? He posted this. There's a white sedan with no front plate at the rear of the police car. Not sure if it's his, but what are the odds of a white sedan with no front plates at both incidents? I think this one is a Honda, though. They do look extremely similar, and they weren't looking for a Honda. Damn. The uncleared car next to it has the 2011 to 2013 Elantra-style reflectors. It's kind of hard to tell if the one next to it is white or silver, though. Supposedly there is a white or silver vehicle that goes by the body cam footage the night of the murders. Huh. Other people are stating that Kohberger might have reached out online to people in the area who were former military. And that's how he met Kopacka. Hot Mess Mom TV posted this. Does anyone else find it odd that one, Kopacka was reportedly shot after roommates and residents had already been evacuated from the building? 2, lead investigator for Idaho, Brian, served in the same brigade and division of the Army, possibly in Afghanistan together. Can't find online records for VA burial for Kopacka. Possibly didn't use VA benefits or cremation to the family, though. 4, it seems like they swept this under the rug and dishonored a veteran in the process. Why? Because they shot the wrong guy and realized it after, question mark? Did Brian set him up to be the fall guy, then escaped when he saw the walls closing in? Or did he use him as an accomplice, and when Kopacka realized it, he flipped out? Disclaimer, I'm aware much of this is speculation, just like the info law enforcement left us with, so what else do we have to go on? Just an awful lot of coincidences. I'm sure law enforcement is playing it close to the vest, but I sure hope they can bring a ton of receipts to show they're prosecuting the right defendant and went about it the right way, since so many things seem off about that PCA and search warrant and the Kopacka incident. Huh. His obituary says he died from PTSD. That's weird. Bright Produce 7400 posted, I find it very coincidental that they shot and killed him on the very day that Brian Kohberger left to go back to Pennsylvania with his father. And recently I heard they changed the cause of death to suicide. They say he had a self-include... What? Wait, what? Huh. Is that true? Bright Produce also posted this. Bingo, I believe Kopacka was also the tech. He was an IT tech at Idaho State University. Do you know what that means? He had access to everything. He was security, and I do believe he was at the Moscow house before. He was in control of pretty much everything in the computer department, meaning software, internet, which could also include pings, I believe. I don't know, I'm not really that intelligent, but there are certain things that I do know, and there are certain things that I feel. If you don't want me here to just tell me nobody else wants me anywhere, there were 2 white Elantras. Kopacka was referring to roommates. Maybe he was referring to the roommates at the Moscow house, not his roommates. Maybe the pressure was too much for him and he snapped. Maybe he knew a little more than we think. A few more interesting posts here. Pork and Cheese Blonde. What about the white truck that pulled up into the Corner Club parking lot all slow while the girls and Jack were walking by? There's a YouTuber that has spent a lot of time talking about the truck and the strange movements that night. So this guy had an Elantra and a white truck? Interesting. A response here by Several Durian. There was a whole website with all this info. It magically disappeared, was scrubbed a few days ago. This is from a few months ago. Gone completely, but people have screen grabs. Don't know, but apparently it has something to do with the owner of the King House and drugs. Apparently, the other BK involved and possibly knew each other from PA. They also said that there was a crashed Elantra on TV in Oregon, was also involved. Apparently, it all leads back to the home owner. That detour to Colorado on the PA trip leads to a property owned by him also. So confusing, but I think that's the gist. They implied more than one Elantra was involved. That's why the years are off. The Army guy is older. I believe they mentioned that truck. Also, BK has a truck, but I think it's black. Huh. That's a lot of crazy information. So there was a white truck following the girls and Jack that night? So people are also still talking about the fact that Fry said that they wanted to speak to the individuals in the Elantra. So does that mean multiple individuals are visible in the Elantra in the ring camera footage? So I'm going to leave this episode with this final post here by Old Wife Tale on Twitter. I still think it's weird that Kopacka posted coordinates for San Francisco, California, and Enon Hirsch heads there within a day or two. Another one of those coinkydinks, I guess. And Enon Hirsch, of course, is the neighbor who said he heard screams the night of the murders. And we'll be going over Hirsch in the next episode because there's so many curiosities regarding this guy. I mean, if there is some kind of drug overlap involvement, it could make sense that multiple people know things, even though they weren't necessarily directly involved with the murders. But yeah, the coincidence stack is quite high. Wow, here's a post from Penguin Methods on Twitter. He wasn't AWOL, he was VA disability. This is regarding Kopacka. Created social media accounts December 2012. Most of them are now scrubbed. His LinkedIn says government contract. If Instagram account is legit, he followed 137 people, including Kaylee Gonzalez and Madison Mogen. He had 48 addresses linked to him. Wow. One of them was actually a gun shop as well. I mean, this is kind of insane. Enon Hirsch left the area the morning of the 16th, right after Kopacka was killed. Huh. That's weird. Dear Sir or Madam responded, his whole story regarding Kopacka isn't being told. I've never heard of a Purple Heart veteran's SWAT death not be investigated. Some follow-up posts. I always wondered if it was Brent and not Brian Koberger who was into Kaylee or Madison. The supposed photo of Madison on Koberger's phone could have been a message from Brent. Wow, that's curious. So there's supposedly a photo of Madison on Koberger's phone. This is kind of weird. Some people are actually claiming that the photo Kopacka posted of his eye, the reflection of a house in his eye, they're claiming it's actually Koberger's family's house in Pennsylvania. Was that perceived to be some kind of a threat by Koberger? Is Kopacka stating a threat there? And that's why Koberger headed home? I mean, that's kind of weird. Or is it just kind of a weird post of, I'm watching you and your family for whatever reason? Make sure you don't reveal anything. Not necessarily a threat, but just, I know where you are and I'm watching you. That's really weird, but I don't know if it's possible. I don't know if you can tell what that is, what the reflection is. I guess it could be any house. Very, very bizarre, nonetheless. Well, this is also weird. If you go to giglio-bradylist.com, it says the Moscow Police Department is not in compliance with the nationwide public-facing Brady List or the Supreme Court of U.S. Brady Doctrine or the U.S. Freedom of Information Act or the State Sunshine Law or the Open Government Act or the Open Government Initiative or the Open Government Directives. Wow. And this is not a big department. They apparently have at least 3 officers on the Brady List and not in compliance with all the... Wow, this is insane. What is going on in Moscow, Idaho? This info also coming from the We the People Twitter account. Oh, there's actually one more post I wanted to go over. The DoorDash driver was apparently a female. So this female DoorDash driver supposedly also quit immediately after. Now, that doesn't mean anything, right? Because if you're a DoorDash driver, you deliver to a place that turns out to be a quadruple homicide, you might be too scared to ever do that job ever again. So that doesn't necessarily mean she saw or heard something, but it is kind of weird. And there's actually, what is going on here? I mean, there's just so many other issues. The neighbor, a female neighbor, got her car broke into and her underwear left in a cup holder March 2nd, 2022. This neighbor apparently bought a Ring camera after that. Huh. And there's so many oddities of people breaking into houses. Of course, all the animal killings in the area, all the fraternity and sorority issues. But that's kind of weird. There was a parent here, names all blacked out, posted on Facebook. The rumor I'm hearing, this was immediately after. This was November 16th. The rumor I'm hearing circulating amongst the friends, they are also saying, rumor is the stalker didn't get the girl he wanted. It was one of the girls upstairs, and that's why they have fallen off the planet, nowhere to be found, and social media shut down. This stalker supposedly hacked the Wi-Fi, booby-trapped cars, and has been harassing them. Again, this is all a rumor amongst the kids up there. I don't know if they're alleging here that, wow, that's a theory we did not go over. What was one of the other two roommates the real target? Huh. That's crazy. That's really weird. And that's why they were hidden away from the public. Huh. Here's some more rumors from this Facebook parent, or alleged Facebook parent. It's rumored Kaylee lets the dog Murphy out and sees a guy in a tree with a mask on and runs inside, and she's telling the house. The two girls run upstairs, lock themselves in the room. That's when the stalker guy in the tree walks into the house. They say they heard a few screams and that was it, but it terrified them and they stayed hidden in a closet. I guess one can presume they ran and left their phones downstairs. Again, the rumor coming from friends or boyfriends of girls that were upstairs. That's the last thing I heard. Everyone is just relieved to be out of Moscow right now. If I hear anything else, I'll share what I think I can. Friends of them are sticking to the story. It was a stalker psycho and he was up in a tree wearing a mask and walked in after somebody walked the dog. Wow, this is mind-shocking information. This is from November 17th, 2022. Does that make sense? Does that explain why the calls to the police weren't made immediately? Because if they were that spooked and they left their cell phones, does that house even have a landline? And if so, are their phones in the other rooms on a landline? All very curious. Huh. A few more details, but want to be respectful until it's confirmed. One rumor is the bodies were stabbed and mutilated and they don't want that out. It's so crazy and sad. Moscow is the best little college campus on the planet. It's hard to believe this is happening. Also, two other girls lived in the house and supposedly hid and were terrified to move until hours later because they could hear their friends screaming. Again, this could be a rumor, but a total of 5 girls lived in that house. Yeah, this is really weird because if they did hear the screaming and they were too scared to... I mean, that actually kind of makes sense, right? Particularly if they left their phones, if they were out of the room and Kaylee comes in screaming about the guy in the tree and they all run and hide. So the neighbor apparently also... So the neighbor's car is broken into. There's all these other reports of break-ins. Huh. There's a December 19th, 22 press release from the Moscow PD that states that at this time in the investigation, Detectives do not believe the following are involved in this crime: the two surviving roommates, the male in the grub truck surveillance video, the private party driver who took Kaylee and Madison home on the 13th, the male Kaylee and Madison called numerous times during the early morning hours of November 13th, any individual at the residence when 911 was called, or the individual on the lease who moved out of the residence before the school year started and was not present at the time of the incident. There's also some discussion here from March 24th regarding leaks, which may or may not be verified, that supposedly the Idaho State Laboratory did not find Kohberger's DNA on the sheath, or any DNA on the sheath. And the first officers in the room didn't even see a sheath. So supposedly they sent the DNA to a Texas company, which was the one that found the DNA on the sheath. So this was done prior. Well, nobody knows when it was really done, but if it took that long, did they not have his DNA at the time that they alleged they did have his DNA on the sheath? I mean, there's a lot of problems here. There's a lot of problems with this case and the timeline. We the People also posted that Kohberger did not cancel his doctor's appointment right after the crime. So supposedly he had no wounds on him. Huh. It seems like some people have found some social media of showing Brian Kohberger with friends and female friends as well. One of them did an interview where she stated that Brian Kohberger was funny and respectful to females. So a lot of different information here. All right, here's the final mind shock here, because I think my mind has already been shocked so much here. Apparently, this is also coming from the We the People Twitter, but they do have a link here to lawandcrime.com. This is the Law and Crime Live Trial Network. He lived 1,200 feet from my door. Driver who brought Idaho victims home the night they were killed is exceptionally glad about suspect's arrest. So the private driver that dropped off Gonzalez and Mogen lives right next to Kohberger. He's also the one who sent in the tip about the Elantras. Wow. I mean, this is crazy. And let's not forget the hit and run, coincidentally, right in front of Kohberger's apartment as well. And we're about to get even further into Mind Shock land. He actually also stated, the driver spends much of his days shuttling people around town, so after the killings, he kept an eye out for the white Hyundai Elantra. He eventually spotted it at Kohberger's apartment building sometime after December 7th. Quote, I thought it was too new, he said of the car, since Moscow police asked the public for info about a 2011 to 2013 Elantra. So even he stated it was the wrong body style. Huh. The other thing that's kind of interesting, these are quotes from him. They were all nice girls. They were always polite with me. They were happy, friendly girls. In my opinion, there was nothing bad about them, he said. They were all good employees at Mad Greek, he added, referring to downtown Moscow restaurant. How did he know they worked at the Mad Greek? And why did he feel the need? Why did he feel the need to go out of his way to say that? This is way back in January 6th. I'm hoping they have an ironclad case, the driver said. I desperately, desperately hope they have this locked down. If they let this guy walk, it's a shame, end quote. Those are interesting quotes because he's not saying I desperately hope they have the right guy, because that means that the real killer's not out there. He said specifically, if they let this guy walk, it's a shame. How does he know that this guy specifically is guilty? This is a weird interview. So coincidentally, he lives 1,200 feet from Brian. He lives right next to Kohberger. Now, here's another mind shock. This might not be true. This is a post from Nicole. The DoorDash driver also lived by Koberger. Odd, at the King Roadhouse all at the same time, and the neighbors. So wait a second. Wait a second. Is it really possible that the DoorDash driver and the Uber driver both live right next to Koberger, and all three of them just happen to be at this house in Moscow on that particular night at that particular time window? Anybody find that strange if that's true? I mean, this is just all completely insane. Now, the Uber driver continues working, but the supposedly female DoorDash driver quits immediately after. They all live next to Koberger. Is that really true? I mean, this is just really, really insane. I believe that's enough mind shocks for now. In the next episode, we'll be getting into Inan Harsh and if there are any connections there, because there's also a whole slew of coincidences in that direction. Hope everybody found another edition of Mind Shock True Crime interesting and informative in the Idaho Murders case series. If you want to help support the podcast, help get more mind-shocking information out there, keep up awareness in cold cases and current cases, and ensure that justice is served, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. You can also become a YouTube member right here on YouTube, access to exclusive streams and chats. Like and share Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Patreon. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind, leave them in the comments section. This is Bruce McGuire signing off. Catch you guys next time.